Homeless girl saves billionaire's son. After doctors pronounce him dead. But what happened next? 2:47 p.m., a hospital room. A billionaire's son lies motionless, dead for 28 minutes. The doctor has given up. The machines are silent. The parents wait to say goodbye. Then a homeless girl slips past security, bare feet, messy hair, tan shirt, in her hands a golden cup filled with water. She pours it over the dead boy's face. The doctor lunges to stop her. Too late. The boy gasps. His heart beats. What happens next defies every law of medicine and shatters everything science claims to know about life and death. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments, what time is it and where are you watching from? Let's start. St. Gabriel's Hospital, Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, Room 307. The afternoon sun filtered through vertical blinds, casting stripes of light across sterile white walls and gleaming medical equipment. Monitors sat silent now, turned off after the medical team had exhausted every option. An IV pole stood unused in the corner. The hospital bed with its crisp white sheets held a small, still form. Dr. Nathan Cross stood just inside the doorway, his white medical coat hanging open over his teal scrubs and darker teal tie. At 34, he was one of the hospital's most promising pediatric specialists. He had a stethoscope around his neck that he just used to confirm what the machines had already told him. The boy was dead. 7-year-old Alexander Whitmore, only son of tech billionaire Richard Whitmore, had been admitted 6 hours ago with what appeared to be a severe allergic reaction. His throat had swollen, his breathing had stopped, and despite immediate intervention, epinephrine, intubation, advanced life support, his heart had given out. They'd worked on him for 43 minutes. CPR, defibrillation, every drug protocol in the book. Nothing had worked. At 2:47 p.m., Dr. Cross had called it. Time of death, 2:47 p.m. Now, at 3:15 p.m., he stood looking at the small body, trying to find the words he'd have to say to the parents waiting in the family room down the hall. Richard Whitmore was worth $8 billion. His wife Victoria had just lost their only child. No amount of money could fix this. No lawsuit could bring Alexander back. Dr. Cross was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't hear the door open behind him until a small voice spoke. "He's not dead yet." Dr. Cross spun around. A girl stood just inside the room, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with messy dark brown hair that looked like it hadn't been brushed in days. She wore a tan or beige short-sleeved shirt that was stained and too big for her small frame, and a darker tan or olive green skirt that was frayed at the hem. Her feet were bare and dirty on the hospital's clean floor. A homeless child. How had she gotten past security? "You can't be in here," Dr. Cross said immediately, moving to block her view of the body. "This is a restricted area." "How did you—" "He's not dead," the girl repeated, her eyes fixed on the bed. "Not all the way dead. There's still a tiny bit of life left. I can see it." "Sweetheart, I don't know who you are or how you got in here, but this patient has passed away. You need to leave right now." "Security!" But the girl didn't leave. Instead, she held up something she'd been carrying, a golden-colored cup, like a small bowl, filled with water. It looked old, tarnished, the kind of thing you'd find at a flea market or in someone's attic. "This water can help him," she said. "It's from the spring behind St. Augustine's church. My grandmother told me about it before she died. She said the spring water has healing in it, that it can bring people back if they're not too far gone yet. Dr. Cross stared at her. That's not how medicine works. That's superstition. Please, you need to leave before—" The girl suddenly darted around him, moving faster than he expected. She reached the bedside before he could stop her. "Wait! Don't touch him!" But she was already tilting the golden cup, pouring the water over Alexander's pale, still face. It splashed across his forehead, ran down his cheeks, dripped onto the white pillow beneath his head. Dr. Cross grabbed her shoulder, pulling her back, his mind already racing through the implications. Contamination of the body, explaining this to the parents, security protocols. Then Alexander gasped. It was a small sound, a tiny intake of breath, but unmistakable. Dr. Cross released the girl and rushed to the bedside. He pressed his fingers to Alexander's neck, feeling for a pulse he knew wouldn't be there because he'd already checked, because the boy had been dead for 28 minutes, because this was impossible. There was a pulse, weak, thready, but present. "Oh, my God," Dr. Cross whispered. His hands were shaking as he grabbed his stethoscope, pressed it to Alexander's chest. Heart sounds. Faint, irregular, but there. Oh, my God. He jabbed the call button on the wall. "I need a code team in room 307. Patient has regained cardiac function. Move, move, move." Within seconds, the room flooded with medical staff, nurses, residents, respiratory therapists. They surrounded the bed, hooking Alexander back up to monitors, starting IVs, checking vitals. The machines that had been silent suddenly burst into beeps and alarms as they detected life where there had been none. Dr. Cross stood back, letting his team work, his mind unable to process what had just happened. His eyes found the homeless girl who'd been pushed into the corner by the influx of staff. She still held the golden cup, now empty, watching the organized chaos with calm, knowing eyes. "His heart rate is stabilizing," one of the nurses called out. "BP is 80/50 and rising," another reported. "He's breathing on his own, shallow but present. Pupils are reactive to light." Dr. Cross felt like he was in a dream. This didn't happen. Dead children didn't come back to life, especially not after someone poured water on them from a golden cup. "We need to intubate and get him to ICU," Dr. Cross said, his training kicking in even though his brain was screaming that none of this made sense. "Someone call the parents. Tell them—" He paused. What could he possibly tell them? Tell them there's been a development. Their son is alive. The next 30 minutes were a blur of medical procedures and tests. Alexander was stabilized, moved to ICU, hooked up to every monitor in the hospital's arsenal. His parents were called and came running, Victoria sobbing, Richard demanding to know what was happening. Through it all, Dr. Cross kept glancing at the homeless girl who'd somehow remained in the room, unnoticed by everyone else in their focus on the miracle patient. Finally, when things calmed down and Alexander was stable in ICU with his parents at his bedside, Dr. Cross found the girl sitting in a corner of the hallway. "What's your name?" he asked, sitting down beside her. "Mira." "Mira, I need you to tell me exactly what just happened in there. What was in that water?" "I told you. It's from the spring behind St. Augustine's Church, the old one on Riverside Avenue that nobody uses anymore." "And you think this spring water has healing properties?" "Not think. No. My grandmother used it her whole life. She said it saved her when she was dying of fever as a child. She said it saved lots of people over the years, but most folks forgot about it." Dr. Cross rubbed his face. "Mira, I'm a doctor. I believe in science, in medicine, in things I can test and measure. What you're describing is a miracle, Mira suggested. Yeah, I know. Grown-ups don't like miracles. They like explanations. But sometimes miracles are the explanation. How did you even know about Alexander? About what happened to him? Mira looked down at her bare feet. I was in the hospital looking for food. Sometimes the cafeteria throws out stuff that's still good. I was in the hallway when I heard doctors talking about a boy who died. Something inside me knew I had to help. So I ran to the church, filled my cup from the spring, and came back. You ran to St. Augustine's and back? That's 3 miles. I ran fast because I knew he wasn't all the way dead yet. I could feel it, like there was still a little spark inside him waiting for help. Dr. Cross wanted to dismiss this as childish fantasy, but he couldn't argue with the result. A dead child was now alive. Medical science had failed. Spring water from a golden cup had succeeded. Dr. Cross? A nurse appeared at his elbow. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore want to speak with you. They're asking what happened. Dr. Cross stood, looking down at Mira. Stay here, please. I need to talk to them, but then I need to talk to you more. He walked to the ICU family room where Richard and Victoria Whitmore waited. Both looked shell-shocked. Victoria's face streaked with tears. Richard's usual commanding presence reduced to bewildered gratitude. Doctor, Richard said immediately, they told us Alexander was dead. They said you pronounced him deceased at 2:47. Now they're saying he's alive, that his vitals are stable, that he might actually recover. How is that possible? Dr. Cross took a deep breath. I don't have a complete explanation. What I can tell you is that at 2:47, your son had no heartbeat, no brain activity, and no respiration. We had exhausted all medical interventions. I made the call to cease resuscitation. He paused. Then, 28 minutes later, a child entered his room, a homeless girl. She poured water from a cup onto Alexander's face. Immediately after he gasped, his heart started beating again. We were able to stabilize him. Against all medical probability, he's alive. Victoria gripped her husband's arm. A homeless girl? Who is she? Where is she? Her name is Mira. She's in the hallway. She claims the water came from a spring behind an old church. She says it has healing properties. Richard's business mind immediately engaged. I want that spring tested. I want to know what's in that water. If it has properties that can reverse death, we need to... Richard, Victoria interrupted. I don't care about the water. I want to meet this child. She saved our son's life. Dr. Cross led them to where Mira waited. The little girl stood up as they approached, clutching her golden cup, looking nervous. Victoria knelt down in front of her, tears streaming down her face. You're Mira? Yes, ma'am. Dr. Cross says you saved my son. Is that true? Mira shrugged. I just knew he needed help, and I knew the spring water could help. My grandmother taught me. Victoria pulled Mira into a tight hug. Thank you. Thank you so much. You gave me back my baby. Richard stood watching, his expression unreadable. Finally, he knelt down too. Mira, where are your parents? Don't have any. My mama died when I was 4. Never knew my daddy. My grandmother raised me, but she died 6 months ago. I've been on my own since then. Where do you live? Wherever. Sometimes the shelter has room. Sometimes I sleep behind the church. Richard and Victoria exchanged a look. Not anymore, Victoria said firmly. Mira, would you like to come live with us? We have a big house with many rooms. You'd have your own room, your own bed, food every day, and—" her voice caught, "and a little brother who owes you his life." Mira's eyes went wide. "Really? You want me to live in your house?" "Not want, need. Our family needs you." Dr. Cross watched this exchange with a mixture of awe and confusion. The medical part of his brain was still trying to rationalize what had happened. Dead tissue didn't regenerate. Cardiac function didn't spontaneously return. 28 minutes without oxygen should have caused irreversible brain damage. But Alexander was upstairs, alive, his brain showing normal activity on every scan they'd run. "Mr. Whitmore," Dr. Cross said, "I'd like your permission to study that spring water, to understand what happened today." "Of course. But, Doctor—" Richard stood, helping Victoria and Mira to their feet. "I've spent my career building technology to solve problems. I've always believed that everything has a logical explanation, a scientific basis. But what happened today—" He shook his head. "Maybe some things aren't meant to be explained. Maybe they're just meant to be accepted with gratitude." Over the next 3 days, Alexander made a full recovery. Every test came back normal. No brain damage, no organ failure, no explanation for how he'd survived or how he'd come back. The spring water was analyzed by 3 different labs. Results: ordinary H2O with trace minerals. Nothing special, nothing that could explain bringing someone back from death. But Mira's story checked out. St. Augustine's church was real, abandoned for 20 years. Behind it was a natural spring that had been there for over a century. Local historical records mention people coming to the spring for healing in the 1800s, before modern medicine made such practices seem primitive. Dr. Cross stood at Alexander's bedside on the day of his discharge, watching the boy laugh at something his father said. Mira sat in a chair beside the bed, wearing clean clothes now, her hair brushed, looking like any other child except for the golden cup she still carried everywhere. "Dr. Cross." Alexander looked at him. "Mira told me what happened. She said I died, but she brought me back with magic water." "Is that what happened?" Dr. Cross asked, still not sure himself. "I don't remember dying, but I remember dreaming. I dreamed I was in a dark place, and I heard Mira's voice calling me back. She said it wasn't my time yet. Then I felt water on my face, and I could breathe again." He reached for Mira's hand. "She saved me. That's all I need to know." As the Whitmore family left, Richard pushing Alexander's wheelchair, Victoria holding Mira's hand, all of them together now, Dr. Cross realized that maybe Richard had been right. Some things didn't need scientific explanations. A homeless girl with a golden cup had saved a boy that medicine couldn't save. That was miracle enough. If this story left you speechless, don't scroll away. Like if you believe some miracles can't be explained, only witnessed. Comment below. Do you believe in healing springs? Have you ever witnessed something medicine couldn't explain? Subscribe for powerful stories where homeless children perform miracles that billion-dollar medicine cannot.